the Black Death. Just the name sends chills down our spines, conjuring images of suffering and death on an unimaginable scale. Between 1346 and 1353, this gruesome plague swept across Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa, leaving countless lives lost and societies forever changed. The plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, manifested in three terrifying forms: bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic. Bubonic plague, the most common form, presented with agonizingly swollen lymph nodes called buboes. Pneumonic plague, even more deadly, attacked the respiratory system, causing coughing fits and spreading rapidly through the air. The Black Death's journey to Europe began in the east, likely in Central Asia, where the bacterium Yersinia pestis had long circulated among rodent populations. Carried by fleas that thrived on infected rats, the plague spread along trade routes, hitching rides on unsuspecting merchants and their caravans. By the 1340s, the plague had reached the Crimean Peninsula, a bustling hub of trade in the Black Sea. Legend has it that Mongol forces, laying siege to the city of Kaffa, catapulted infected corpses over the city walls, unleashing the plague upon their enemies. From Kaffa, trading ships, some unknowingly carrying plague-infected rats, departed for ports across the Mediterranean.
By the end of 1347, the Black Death had reached the shores of mainland Europe, arriving first in the bustling port cities of Italy. Panic ensued as people witnessed the swift and gruesome deaths of their loved ones. The plague spread like wildfire, carried by rats on ships and overland trade routes. Medieval Europe, densely populated and with limited medical knowledge, proved fertile ground for the plague's spread. Sanitation was poor, and cities were plagued by overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. The presence of rats, fleas, and other vermin only exacerbated the problem.
The Black Death, a relentless and unforgiving killer, announced its presence with a terrifying array of symptoms. The bubonic plague, the most common form, struck with agonizing swiftness. Infected individuals would experience a sudden onset of fever, chills, and weakness. Their bodies racked with pain. Lymph nodes became grotesquely swollen, forming painful buboes that oozed pus and blood. Pneumonic plague, an even more sinister form of the disease, attacked the respiratory system with terrifying speed. Victims coughed up blood, their breath becoming labored and shallow as their lungs filled with fluid. Death, often within days of the first symptoms, came as a merciful release from unimaginable suffering.
A continent in chaos, the plague's grip on Europe. By the middle of the 14th century, the Black Death had sunk its teeth deep into Europe, its tendrils reaching into every corner of the continent, from the bustling port cities of Italy and France to the rural villages of England and Germany. The plague spread with terrifying speed, leaving a trail of death and despair in its wake.
The plague's impact on Europe was immediate and catastrophic. Cities, once centers of commerce and culture, transformed into desolate ghost towns as their inhabitants succumbed to the disease or fled in terror.
The struggle to survive. Medieval medicine confronts the plague. In the face of the Black Death's relentless assault, medieval medicine found itself woefully unprepared. With little understanding of the disease's causes or transmission, physicians and healers resorted to a combination of traditional remedies, religious rituals, and desperate measures, often to no avail.
Bloodletting, a practice deeply rooted in the medieval medical tradition, was widely employed to rid the body of bad humors believed to be the cause of illness. In the absence of effective treatments, people turned to prayer, superstition, and folk remedies in a desperate attempt to ward off the disease. Death's harvest, the staggering mortality rate. The Black Death's rampage across Europe left a horrifying trail of death in its wake. From the bustling cities to the smallest villages, no corner of the continent was spared its grim touch. The sheer scale of death overwhelmed burial practices, forcing communities to find grim solutions. Mass graves, hastily dug to accommodate the overwhelming number of dead, became commonplace.
Section 2. The Crumbling Order, Social and Economic Upheaval. As the Black Death ravaged Europe, it tore apart the very fabric of medieval society. One of the most significant consequences of the Black Death was a severe labor shortage. With so many dead, fields lay fallow, workshops stood idle, and trade routes fell into disuse. The scarcity of labor gave peasants and laborers, once bound to their lords by feudal obligations, unprecedented leverage.
Section 3. The scapegoat, fear, prejudice, and the search for blame. In times of crisis, human nature often seeks explanations, someone or something to blame for the suffering inflicted upon them. Fear and uncertainty gripped medieval Europe, leading to a search for scapegoats, individuals or groups upon whom to pin the blame for the plague's devastation. Jews, already marginalized and subject to prejudice in medieval Europe, became convenient targets for accusations of well poisoning, a widespread belief at the time. These accusations, often baseless and rooted in centuries-old prejudices, led to violence, persecution, and massacres of Jewish populations across Europe.
Section 1. Voices from the Grave, Chronicles of Suffering and Loss. The Black Death was more than just a historical event. It was a deeply personal tragedy for millions across Europe. These first-hand accounts offer a poignant glimpse into the human cost of the pandemic, revealing the fear, grief, and resilience of those who lived through it. One such account comes from the pen of Giovanni Boccaccio, an Italian writer who witnessed the plague's arrival in Florence in 1348. In his masterpiece, The Decameron, Boccaccio paints a vivid picture of a city gripped by fear and despair.
Amidst the darkness and despair of the Black Death, stories of remarkable courage and compassion shine through, reminding us of the enduring strength of the human spirit. One such story is that of Father Michel de Piazze, a humble priest from the French city of Avignon, who risked his life to minister to the sick and dying during the plague's peak. Father Michel, a man of deep faith and unwavering devotion to his parishioners, refused to abandon his flock when the plague reached Avignon in 1348. As the city's inhabitants succumbed to the disease in droves, Father Michel tirelessly tended to their needs, offering comfort, spiritual guidance, and the last rites to those on the brink of death. He worked tirelessly, moving from house to house, his own safety secondary to his pastoral duty.
Even amidst the death and despair of the Black Death, love found a way to bloom, offering a glimmer of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. The story of Giovanni and Francesca, two young lovers from the Italian city of Siena, is a testament to the enduring power of love, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Giovanni, a young merchant's son, and Francesca, the daughter of a wealthy cloth dyer, fell deeply in love despite their family's long-standing feud. Their love, forbidden and defiant, blossomed in secret rendezvous and stolen glances, their hearts yearning for a future together. However, their dreams were shattered when the Black Death reached Siena, casting a long shadow over their love. As the plague ravaged the city, claiming the lives of countless citizens, Giovanni and Francesca found their families torn apart by the disease. Fear and suspicion poisoned the hearts of many, but Giovanni and Francesca's love only deepened in the face of adversity. They risked everything to be together, stealing moments of joy and solace amidst the surrounding suffering. Their love, a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness, became a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to find beauty and connection even in the most challenging of times.
The Black Death, having swept across Europe with the force of a biblical plague, left a continent forever altered. Gone were the densely packed cities of the Middle Ages, replaced by a patchwork of towns and villages, their populations decimated. The plague's impact transcended mere demographics. It shook the very foundations of medieval society, leaving an indelible mark on Europe's social, economic, and cultural landscapes. The art and literature of the post-plague era reflected the collective trauma experienced by a generation confronted with unimaginable suffering. The Danse Macabre, a morbid artistic motif depicting skeletons leading the living to their graves, became a haunting reminder of death's indiscriminate reach. Religious iconography took on a darker tone, emphasizing the themes of suffering, mortality, and divine judgment. The plague, having shattered the illusion of order and stability, forced people to confront the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of death. The once unquestioned authority of the Church, weakened by its inability to provide solace or prevent the plague's devastation, faced growing skepticism. People, having witnessed the deaths of countless priests and nuns, began to question the Church's teachings on sin, salvation, and the afterlife. The plague, having exposed the limitations of earthly power and the fallibility of religious dogma, sowed the seeds of doubt and dissent that would later blossom into the Reformation.
Section 2, Labour's Ascendancy, the Shifting Balance of Power. The Black Death in its wake upended the long-established social order of medieval Europe. The feudal system based on a rigid hierarchy with peasants bound to their lords by ties of obligation and servitude began to crumble as the scarcity of labour empowered the lower classes. With so many dead, those who survived found themselves in high demand, their skills and labour essential for rebuilding a shattered continent. Peasants, once tied to the land and beholden to their lords, found themselves able to demand higher wages and better working conditions. Some even abandoned their feudal obligations altogether, seeking opportunities in towns and cities desperate for skilled workers. The Black Death, in its own grim way, had inadvertently loosened the shackles of serfdom, paving the way for a more mobile and market-driven economy. The rise of a new merchant class, fueled by the expansion of trade and commerce, further challenged the dominance of the landed aristocracy. Cities, once decimated by the plague, experienced a resurgence as centers of economic activity, attracting artisans, merchants, and laborers seeking new opportunities. The Black Death, having disrupted the old order, created space for new social and economic structures to emerge. Section 3, Seeds of Change, the Renaissance and the Reformation. From the ashes of the Black Death, a new era dawned in Europe, the Renaissance. This period of great intellectual, artistic, and cultural flourishing was shaped by the profound impact of the plague. The trauma of the Black Death fostered a renewed appreciation for life, human potential, and knowledge. The Renaissance marked a departure from the God-centered worldview of the Middle Ages. The plague exposed the limitations of religious dogma and shifted intellectual paradigms. The Reformation, rooted in post-plague social and intellectual ferment, shattered the unity of the Catholic Church. Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin criticized the Church, weakened by its failures during the Black Death. The Black Death became a catalyst for profound change, ushering in a new era in European history.
Lessons from the Black Death. The Black Death, a harrowing chapter in human history, serves as a stark reminder of our vulnerability to infectious diseases. Its legacy extends far beyond the millions of lives lost, shaping European history and leaving valuable lessons for modern society. The plague forced people to confront their mortality and adapt to a world forever altered. It transformed public health practices, leading to quarantine measures and improved hygiene. The Black Death also left its mark on the arts and literature, reflecting collective trauma and spiritual questioning. The Danse Macabre became a recurring motif, reminding people of their mortality and life's fragility. Section 2. The Plague's Shadow, Echoes in Modern Pandemics. Centuries after the Black Death ravaged Europe, the specter of infectious disease continues to haunt humanity. Modern pandemics, from HIV/AIDS to COVID-19, remind us of our interconnectedness and the threat of emerging pathogens. Advances in medicine and public health have equipped us with tools unimaginable in the 14th century. Quarantine, first used during the Black Death, remains a cornerstone of pandemic response. Hygiene, crucial in preventing disease transmission, gained traction during the plague. The Black Death highlighted the importance of public health infrastructure. The social and economic disruptions of the Black Death find parallels in our modern experience with pandemics.
Vigilance and preparedness in a globalized world. The Black Death reminds us of our vulnerability to infectious diseases. Despite advances, pandemics remain a threat in our interconnected world. Lessons from the Black Death highlight the need for public health infrastructure and international cooperation. Globalization and environmental changes intensify the risk of disease spread. Our interconnected world creates pathways for pathogens to spread rapidly. The Black Death's journey along trade routes underscores the need for global cooperation in pandemic preparedness. Investing in public health, research, and international collaboration is crucial.